When it comes to relationships, when it comes to anything, I suppose, when the pressure goes on, when there's a bit of stress, when things aren't the way that you thought they were, well, speaking from a personal experience, I'm not the best version of myself. It's very much easier to be the nice guy when things are going your way and the pressure isn't on so much, but developing perseverance and patience at times of pressure. Well, somebody with the some wisdom and advice on this topic, Wynand Jacobs from FamilyLife joins us. Wynand, how's the pressure at your place?
Oh, kia ora, Andrew. It's been an interesting season. There's different aspects of pressure, but one of the exciting things causing us pressure at the moment is the fact that we're parents to two beautiful kids.
Yeah.
Just turned 5, and my son has just gone to school this year,
Wow.
and then our daughter's 2.
hmm
And this is an interesting thing. Like one of the things we're working on, people just come in different shapes and sizes, and people come with different aptitudes. My daughter, who's 2, wants to do everything for herself.
hmm
Like she wants to do it. Competence is a big thing for her.
Yeah.
My son, not so much. Although he still wants to be competent.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because as he tries to do things, and one of the things, is putting on his socks,
hmm
but it has to be perfect.
Yeah.
I can see he gets frustrated very, very easily. Now
hmm
that's maybe not a pressure situation, but the two words that we're like coaching our kids through at the moment, and I'll tie back to how this relates to our marriage, is patience and persistence,
Yeah.
right? So you're struggling with something, you're going to get there. It's difficult right now, but the two virtues that you want to really instill in your kids and in your own life is patience and persistence,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
Being patient as you struggle or as you go through pressure, and being persistent, knowing that you will get through this.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the other day, with the pressure situation, change of timetables, 2 different locations to drop kids off,
hmm
trying to be on time for school, Auckland traffic, all these things causing different pressures.
Yeah.
Me getting slightly frustrated with my son, helping him getting into his booster seat and buckling it up.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me and he says, "Dad, patience and persistence."
Wow. Wisdom.
And I'm like,
Wow.
"Yes, Jonah, you've got it.
Oh my
You've got it."
goodness. Yeah.
So you know what? Pressure will come, and that's what I've found. Like we could plan as much as we want. We could try and avoid pressure as much as we possibly can in life,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. Like we talk about that at our weekends to remember it, and how you can avoid pressure.
hmm
But there will always be some aspects of life beyond your control that's going to add additional pressure. And the question is, how are we going to respond in that moment?
hmm that's job done, parenting. To have a principle as complicated as patience and persistence, something which us adults struggle with on a daily basis, and to have your son repeat that back to you, I think, that's a good sign in some ways, but I suppose you've set a high bar now in terms of him
Well, for
remembering
who?
what you
For
say.
myself?
Exactly. You've said, hey, this is the standards we want for your family, and hey, it's a good sign that your children are listening. They're repeating them back to you.
Yeah,
But yeah, if anything, that's added to the pressure, Vena.
yeah. Well, and this is interesting. It's often what happens under pressure
Mm,
in our marriage, in our relationship, is we can easily turn on one another,
yeah.
right? We misdirect where the problem is,
hmm
and then our spouse becomes our enemy.
Yeah.
And this is a slow and long lesson that I'm learning through many mistakes.
Yeah.
But hey, fortunately, if we pass the good material onto our kids, they will
Yeah.
pass it right back to us.
Yeah.
Daddy, patience and persistence.
That is cool.
And you know what? Often that's all. That's all we need to be reminded of.
hmm
This is tough. We're going to get through it. Let's be persistent,
Mm,
and let's be patient with one another in the process.
yeah.
And look, that goes a long way, because no matter what really caused the pressure, um, things always get ugly when we turn against each other in those moments.
Yep.
But we'll do well to like take on board what Scripture says when it says, count it joy when you fall into various trials and tribulations, right? What does these things form? Character, faith. And like, if we can just pause in those moments where the pressure feels like it's too much, just take a breath. And I actually love this phrase. It's from the Psalms, but it's just repeating this: whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, my Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and apply that to whatever the situation is, because pressure is related to fear, and it's also related to the outcome of what's going to happen if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And so if we can just get into the practice of saying, whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, my Lord. Yeah. Practice patience and persistence, and then just take a breath and engage with one another. We're going to get through this. So if one of our listeners today are out there thinking, man, how are we going to get through this? You are going to get through this. Yeah. All right. It's going to take some patience and persistence and maybe a lot of hard work. It won't be easy. But the joy of life is not in the ease of life. Yeah. The joy of life is what gets produced from pressure. And we know that a diamond is basically a lump of coal exposed to high temperature and pressure situations. So allow the pressure to shape you, and allow that pressure to actually transform a lump of coal into a diamond.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit coal-like at this particular point, but life's a journey in that regard. And I think it's also important to recognize the pressure, because, I mean, as I was mentioning beforehand, we're not necessarily the best versions of ourselves when under pressure. When there's a conspiracy between Auckland traffic, how late you're running, and the complexity of doing up a child car seat, I mean, when those three things are against you, the pressure is on. But actually, to give each other a little bit of grace when we know that perhaps our spouse may be under particular pressure at the moment, to give her a little bit more grace, or to give ourselves a little bit of grace when we know that actually we're under the pump a little bit, to be patient and persistent. Some wonderful wisdom for today. Of course, more of that available at familylife.nz. Wynand, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thank you for your generosity of spirit, even under pressure, even under time pressure. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of the program today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Andrew. Take care.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.